The war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu was on a red carpet in Washington, D.C. just earlier today. He had been received in Hungary with full state honors, and he flew over Italy, Croatia, and France without any attempt being made to arrest him. This despite the International Criminal Court issuing arrest warrants and advising all signatories to the ICC that he should be arrested on or above their territory. International law was just ripped up in front of your eyes. It is a farce and better not spoken of again. The proximate reason for the arrest warrants is the crime of genocide, crimes against humanity, the kind of crimes that got people hanged at the end of the Second World War, and of Netanyahu's many, many crimes over decades. The real one, the big enchilada, is the genocide currently underway again on the Gaza Strip. What are people looking at? Oh, it's only the 210th Palestinian journalist being burned alive in his tent, clearly visible through the flames, sitting at his table, where he was no doubt compiling his latest report. What is everybody looking at? Well, it's only the umpteenth beheaded child, babies cut in half, without heads, without the lower half of their bodies. What is everybody looking at? It's only another woman. It's only another man. Of the 60 or 70,000 men who have been killed, their women, their children, slain oftentimes in front of their eyes. It is mass murder, most foul. And the point is, people are looking at it and doing nothing about it. It seems obvious now that the so-called West, the so-called liberal democracies, you know, the ones that get all up and on their feet with their pussy hats on the streets against Trump's rough language or his attitude to gays or transsexuals. But they don't give a damn about men, women, and children being slaughtered in Gaza, using weapons given to Netanyahu by their own government, headed by that same President Donald Trump. All these liberals, do you remember them cutting off their hair in public places? Do you remember them marching bare-breasted in the streets to protest against this official enemy or that? None of them can muster even a word, never mind an act of protest against the mass slaughter going on in Gaza. So if the West isn't going to bring this to an end, might the East? Really? Might the Arab League? Seriously? Might the Egyptian or Saudi governments or the Jordanian regime? Seriously? That begs the question then. If nobody is going to bring this to an end, Gaza, how bad can it get? You've come to the right place to discuss it. It's Have It Out with Galloway. Sima Itayim is based in Beirut. She's a social media manager, news editor, and content creator at the excellent Cradle, specializing in coverage of Gaza. And we're very lucky that she joins us now. Sima, my salute to all at the Cradle, an indispensable source of news and analysis on all matters in the wider Middle East. I'm asking the question, Gaza, how much worse can it get? I'm really not sure there's an answer to that. Are you?
No, listen, the problem is, first of all, thank you so much for having me, George. The problem is every time we think it can't get worse, it gets worse. And how insane is it that what is happening now makes 4 or 5 months ago look like child's play? I mean, it is a mass grave, Gaza now. It is a mass slaughterhouse. This is something beyond human comprehension. And you've asked me onto your show during a time when words have truly become futile, though it may be our duty to continue speaking. But there's no aid, nonstop bombs, no clean water, no electricity, emergency workers executed and bulldozed into the sand, children being beheaded, Palestinians being burned alive was normalized in 2024. We're in 2025 now. So were babies being beheaded. And of course, journalists being eliminated, just like the health sector is being eliminated, just like all academics are being eliminated, and all first responders. I don't see how it can get much worse than this. And I frankly don't see what the solution is when you have Israel who will not budge. And if we are talking about actors, Israel and Hamas here, and of course, Israel backed by the US, Hamas has conceded a lot so far. So what the real demand is, what Netanyahu's real demand is the disarmament, the full disarmament of Hamas and the exile of its leaders from Gaza. So until Hamas disarms, from the Israeli perspective, there will be no end to this genocide. That is the truth. And of course, Israel also wants to annex Gaza and thin out the population, as Ron Dermer actually said back in 2023, suggested, and so that they can enforce military rule in Gaza, because they don't want Hamas nor Fatah ruling Gaza, actually. So they want to, but in order to take Gaza and enforce military rule there, Hamas has to disarm. Hamas has already conceded power, by the way, and people are here talking about Hamas needs to give up power. You see small protests in Gaza where it's like Hamas needs to give up power. It's been over a year that Hamas has already conceded and said they don't want to rule Gaza. But what they truly want is the complete demilitarization of Gaza. And in fact, this is what they want for the entire region. But let's stick to Gaza for now. I don't see it getting worse, but if this goes on, it will get worse. So,
Well, you see, if disarming Hamas and if the exile of the remaining leaders that have not yet been killed from Hamas would end the crisis, well, some people might be ready to do that, but only a fool would believe that the disarming of the resistance would not be a necessary precursor to the mass exile of the population, the complete annexation of the territory, and the arrival of Trump Tower and condominiums and casino and the ethnic, I was going to say cleansing, but that's far too gentle a word, the ethnic annihilation of the Palestinian population in Gaza. That's what they really want, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And by the way, as of this moment, Israel controls 50% of Gaza. So they've retaken the Netzarim corridor, which bisects Gaza. They're working on the new Morag corridor, which cuts off Rafah from Khan Yunis. And they have vowed to occupy more and more territory to pressure Hamas. And as you know, everything is Hamas. They've demolished large areas near the border, and everything's become uninhabitable. And all this is to be used for long-term control. And whether it's Hamas or not Hamas, existing is resisting anyway. So this is why they are targeting any sign of life, and anyone who is trying to get back up on his or her feet. They will not allow for life actually to flourish or rehabilitate itself in Gaza. So like you said, of course, the stated condition is Hamas must disarm and leave, or we won't stop the war. Of course, the condition is not release all the captives, because you remember at some point recently, Hamas actually offered to release all the captives in one go in exchange for a permanent end to the war, which of course Israel does not want, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. So we all know that's not the case. And we know that a few days ago, the Qassam Brigade's military spokesman said that now most of the prisoners, which there are barely any left alive, are in areas that have been ordered to be evacuated by Israel, and there isn't much more they can do. So this isn't about the captives. This is about wanting to take the land, and it's easier if Hamas gives up its arms before Israel enforces this rule and annexes Gaza. And, you know, the targeting of journalists, I mean, this is, I'm sure you saw it. This is like, Israel has killed more journalists than the US Civil War and the First and Second World Wars and the Korean War and the Vietnam War and the wars in Yugoslavia and the post 9/11 war in Afghanistan combined, according to Brown University's Costs of War project. So I don't see how, like you said, it's about Hamas and it's not about Hamas. It's just about Hamas in the sense that we want to take Gaza and you need to disarm if we are going to take Gaza. And what's the solution to this? Because you know, international law, we all know this is a farce. The West, we know this is a farce, but the Arabs, I mean, really, I mean, I'm here in Beirut and I am horrified at the fact that Lebanese institutions have not declared a general strike for Gaza. I mean, you see it in Saida and Baalbek, but in Beirut, nothing. But then I ask myself, why am I surprised when the Lebanese government has been neglecting South Lebanon anyway? So let's not go as far as Gaza. But I mean, the Arabs, just to make it clear, this isn't just because they have strategic interests, to stay aligned with Washington and they don't want to step over Washington's feet. It's also because the Arabs want Gaza demilitarized. So the Arabs actively support this. That is my take. So.
Well, I suspect, well, more than suspect, I'm sure that you are correct. Let's wind back. Israel was caught. I mean, it's for those of us who are in the know, it's always lying. And it's always easy to establish that they are lying. But even their closest accomplices, for that's what they are, in the Western media, have in the last week been forced to publicly state that the mass murder of 15 health workers, ambulance workers, mass murder, buried with their hands tied behind their back, one of them decapitated, many of them shot in more than one side of their head. It was murder most foul, and Israel was caught lying about it. The video taken by one of the victims of the mass murder clearly shows that Israel's version of the event, which was given to the world, which was retailed by the mass media of the world, was a big, dark lie. Will that make any difference, do you think, to Western media performance?
I mean, we've seen it before. I mean, we've seen Israel's lies debunked in Western media before too. So what's the difference this time? I don't know. I mean, it's just catching Israel in another lie, and that goes down in history and shows that Israel's narrative is contested, to say the least. And maybe this lends, maybe this gives more, maybe this gives us a push in the media war. But I mean, what will it change really? Because, after everything we've seen, George, I think something would have been done by now. Again, the West will not do anything because the West is carrying out a plan to, subdue the entire region. So this is not about even, and the Arabs won't do anything because they would have by now, right? So when it comes to the fact that you have mainstream media now having to report on the fact that Israel backtracked on this latest lie, I mean, maybe we could argue that Western media has come, away from like versus 10 years ago. We see now it's so bad that even mainstream media is forced to report on Israel's lies because the truth, the raw truth, which maybe we did not have access to this much, decades ago, is out there. Was Israel expecting this video to be found on his phone? This 7-minute video? I don't think so. So this forces the media to report on this. And of course, all Israel has to do is come back and say, well, it wasn't us, it was the troops on the ground who falsely claimed that, there were no flashing lights and, the account was mistaken and, and then, the vehicles were marked, but, it's just, I mean, what now? What now?
What now, indeed. Now, Macron is in Egypt and being well received by the president of Egypt. He said that he's against the displacement of the Palestinian people from Gaza. He said, by the way, that He demands the observation of the ceasefire in Lebanon, which can't really be called a ceasefire anymore, violated well over 1,500 times in the course of it by Israel. He says that Hamas can have no role in the government of Gaza, but as you rightly say, that's a straw man, because Hamas has already relinquished its governing role in Gaza. Do you think Macron's visit has any significance, or is it just kabuki theater for the sake of another Arab leader's credibility?
Yeah, I think it's kabuki theater, but what we've seen following the visit is a new Egyptian proposal, actually, that has emerged today, which is supposed to kind of bridge the Witkoff proposal with the last proposal. And this now is supposedly the release of 9 living Israeli captives, including that Israeli-American soldier, Idan Alexander, the 3 bodies of captives, and the release of 300 Palestinian prisoners, 150 of them with life sentences, along with the release of over 2,000 detainees in Gaza, and increasing the number of days of the truce to 70 days. So now we have these negotiations, which again, I don't see, this does not solve the war, even if we have another truce now for 70 days. This does not solve the issue of Israel's desire for the disarmament of Hamas, nor does it resolve the day after in Gaza. It's simply like a temporary band-aid for another war that will see the release of some more Palestinian prisoners, of course, and the return of captives, which Israel doesn't even care about. So again, there will be no transition to phase 2. It didn't happen last time, and it won't happen this time. There is also a new Fatah proposal for the reconciliation with Hamas. Now, we've seen over the past months that there's been sabotage of that, but now if it actually works out that there would be unity between Fatah and Hamas, it still won't. Will Israel approve that? Like miraculously out of nowhere, it'll be like, oh, wow, Fatah and Hamas have put the Palestinian house in order. Let's end the war since they've agreed on their vision for the day after. Well, they have their own vision for the day after. They're not waiting for Fatah and Hamas to kiss and make up for them to stop the war. So how much, I'm asking you now, how much of a difference would it make, even if Hamas and Fatah put all their issues aside? I mean, how will this translate into reality? I don't mean to interview you, but I'm genuinely curious here.
Well, it's very difficult for me. I'm not a supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm not a supporter of Mahmoud Abbas. I'm a 50-year supporter of the Palestinian people. My leader, Marwan Barghouti, is in prison. So I don't have a side in their disputes, whatever their disputes now are about. The reality is Israel is holding all the cards. The Russians, who are a superpower, are otherwise engaged. The Chinese, who are a superpower, have not yet arrived on the political battlefield in geopolitical terms. The Arabs are null and void as a political factor. And Iran has its own very real and substantial difficulties. So Israel and Trump hold all the cards. So I'd be lying if I said to you that I had any perspective in which this situation in Gaza does not get worse. I'm merely hoping that there is an afterlife, that there is a judgment day, and that the criminals get what they deserve. Thank you very much indeed, Sima, for being with us. A spirited beginning to the show. Let's go to Gaza for the first call. Mohammed Al-Farah is in Gaza. Let's hear his perspective. Mohammed, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you so much, brother, for having me on today, actually. First of all, I agree and disagree both about what I have heard regarding to Hamas and Fatah and the Israel occupation, but actually I can't speak with this because it's dangerous for me and my family right now. So I'm just going to speak about updates, and maybe later we can just go and speak about this. So the past 4 weeks were really harder than ever. Things are just getting more complicated in Gaza these days. The occupation is just making unimaginable war crimes, and it's just catastrophic, you know? So let's just speak about the updates in Gaza Strip these days. The Israeli occupation is killing people and bombing, targeting people in their tents with no warnings and no, even if people are just sitting in their tents doing nothing, suddenly they got bombed. This is the reality now. It's not an overstate, it's the truth now. Okay, so I have some few updates about the situation here in Gaza. First of all, the borders. So the borders are closed since the returning to the genocide, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. So you can imagine 2 million people are living in a place with no borders, with no shipments coming from abroad. So there is no medical supplies, there is no water, there is no food. Okay, let's just speak about it. If you need to go to the market looking for some food, you're just trying to find some food to feed your children and your family. I swear, and this is not an overstate, you won't find any single thing. The markets are just empty. You won't find anything. It's like a jail. No shipments and no medical supplies and no food. This is the truth right now. So you won't find anything except the empty markets and some few vegetables, and it's really expensive for anyone to buy it. I mean, let's just ask you a question. The 1 kilo of tomato in London, how much is it? It's like, I don't know, it's like £4, £5. Let's just not be surprised, but here it's 15 to 20 pounds, which is really expensive to anyone to afford it. It's the reality right now. So the occupation is using the hunger and the starvation as a weapon, and this is not allowed. That's it. So the northern of Gaza, of course, we have heard about the road and the corridor cutting from the Israeli occupation. And now they have asked the people of Shajaiya neighborhood and Bet Lahiya to evacuate the places. Sorry, they have not asked the people. They forced the people to leave their places, to destroy what little the people had left from their houses. And now the people are displaced once again, which is really shame, isn't it? Moving to Rafah, they also have cut the road from between Rafah and Khan Yunis. So now Rafah is a forbidden area. It's totally destroyed. The Israeli occupation has erased Rafah. This is the truth. You can see it with your naked eyes if you want to see it. Okay, so nobody is allowed to go to Rafah. Nobody is allowed to come from Rafah. That's it. It's closed, totally closed. The people of Rafah, like before the returning to the genocide, like 70% of the 70% of the houses were already destroyed, and now the Israel occupation destroyed what little the people had left from Rafah. Let's move to the medical supplies and the shortage and the lack of the medical supplies in the hospitals. Last time I showed up a picture of Nasser Medical Complex saying that the Israeli occupation has bombed and targeted the hospital, and nothing happened because nothing happened. If something happened, I would know. My father is the director of the hospital, so I would know. There's no medical supplies in the hospital these days. There is no gauze, there is no cannulas, the blue ones and the yellow ones. It's like the essential services, the essential things are not available these days. Also at the market, you won't be able to find the sugar, the flour, the salt, the oil, the rice, anything literally. It's just catastrophic. Actually, last Thursday, I lost my cousin and her husband and their 2 kids. They were just sitting in their tent, and suddenly, randomly, they got bombed for no reason. They got bombed in their tent. It's just really sad to say goodbye to someone while he is beheaded. The kids were beheaded. No arms, no legs. Can you imagine it? It was really hard to say goodbye to someone. You cannot even see his face. You know how hard it is? So you can just imagine it. It's fine. I mean, okay, for sure, more violence means more genocide, and we all know that. And we already heard the word silence, which was really loud, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, but the people, it's something just really more annoying for us as the Palestinians. The people and the world is still dealing with us as statistics and numbers. Like before I lost my cousin, the total death was like 50,000, and now there are 50,004. My cousin and her husband and two kids. We are not statistics. So please respect our lives. We are human beings. I am just trying to deliver a message to the human beings saying that we are human beings and we deserve to be respected. Okay? These are human beings, and these are families that being wiped out silently. This is a genocide being ignored by the world and the international community. This cannot be continued by any chance. Okay, today they have targeted the entrance of Nasser Medical Complex. They burned a journalist to death. Can you imagine it? They burned the journalist. That's why, because he is just sharing the truth. He is just doing his job. It's a humanitarian job. That's all. So it's just the silence, and we are okay with that, but stop dealing with us as numbers and statistics. Okay, that's all what I need, what we need as Palestinians, because it's really frustrating that the people is dealing with you as a number. That's really annoying. So, and last but not least, I would like to say, if this evidence is not enough for the international community and for the human being to admit that Israel is the one who kills and the killer, and we are the innocents who have been killed and who have been dying, eliminated silently, is this not enough? Here you have the evidences, and you can see it if you want to see it. That's all what we have. And I would like to add something. When we were kids, there was an old saying says, South or West, home is the best. But now we have our own saying, which says, there is no South and there is no West and there is no home to be the best. That's all what I have for today. Thank you.
Well, I wish I could tell you that it is enough to force action from the Western world, but I'm afraid I'd be lying to you if I were to say that. You delivered a message very loud and clear, and thank you for doing it on this show. Dr. Mohsen Farkani is in Tehran, where the public are expecting perhaps some bombardment of their own, my friend. Tell us the feeling in Tehran, in Iran, right at this moment. You expecting a hot war, or is it all hot air?
Hello, George. Thank you for having me today. Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter prohibits the threats or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. Therefore, the actions and statements of the U.S. administration clearly violate the principles outlined in the UN Charter. And the majority of sentiments I hear and see nowadays among Iranian youngsters and other age groups in Iran regarding the U.S. threats to invade are an emphasis on resistance in case of any U.S. attack. In times of external threats or crisis, Iranians display a strong sense of patriotism, and national unity tends to surge sharply. This resilience is in our genes. It is part of our identity, our history. Iran is proud to have one of the oldest continuous civilizations, and anyone browsing the internet can easily witness the symbols of Iranian resistance and cultural unity, especially in the enduring legacy of Persepolis. Although thousands of Iranians are suffering today due to the inhuman sanctions imposed by the United States and its Western allies, millions of Iranians still express their happiness and pride on the streets and internet platforms when Iranian military forces humiliate the genocidal Zionist regime, which survives today only due to American and Western support. During the Iran-Iraq War in 1980, over 30 countries supported Saddam Hussein, mostly the United States. And despite massive casualties and destruction, millions volunteered for defense in what was seen as a war for survival and independence. Iran maintained its territorial integrity. This war shaped a lasting sense of resistance to foreign aggression and a deep skepticism toward outside powers. Therefore, I would like to advise the POTUS Donald Trump not to test the tested. We only respect respectful and civilized manners, but harsh to enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that given all the other problems that the US now has, with now counting today, getting up to $15 billion lost on the US stock market, given the grave threats to the American economy, this would be a very unwise time, if any time could be wise, to launch what could become a very major war indeed. I'm not sure that Trump is even in a position to go ahead with any major attack against Iran. Is that something that you're keeping an eye on?
An attack on Iran could lead to a wide-scale instability in the region, with the potential to involve neighboring countries. This would also impact global energy markets and could lead to widespread repercussions. This could lead to a deep change in Iran's nuclear doctrine too. And therefore, it seems that for now, the U.S. is more likely to use sanctions, cyber tactics, diplomatic pressure, or proxy conflicts, rather than launching a full-scale military attack. That's what I believe.
Yeah, or beat up the poor Yemenis next door, which they're doing 24/7 now, they're boasting.
Yes, actually, also, for example, the Yemenis, they are not our proxies. I believe that this is a kind of disrespectfulness to Yemenis. They have their own nation. They have their own targets. Therefore, I believe that Yemenis have, also their targets and their beliefs to defend against, the American threats, Israeli threats, and they look for their own destiny in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that call. Let's go to New York, where I think Netanyahu still is, where Matthew Kelly wants to have a go. Matthew, welcome to you. How was Netanyahu received in New York?
To be quite honest with you, I didn't follow it yet. I didn't know he was coming in today. As we all know, Congress and everyone are going to be elated that he's there. I'm in New York now. I've done one protest in D.C., so I'm sure we got our folks out there. But again, these shameless politicians, I'm sure they're going to be kissing his ring.
What is that all about, Matthew? I mean, the Irish have a saying, eaten bread is soon forgotten. Sure, Adelson gave 100 million. Sure, his missus gave another 100 million. But that's eaten bread. It's normally soon forgotten. Donald Trump doesn't need any more campaign contributions. This is his last presidential term. Why is he displaying such servility to Netanyahu? Have they got something on him?
This is a question I think we've been asking about this government on every issue since the beginning. I think they have something on everybody. I think most of our politicians now, I think they're morally bankrupt, period. I think they're more worried about their careers. I think they're worried about their pockets, their trust funds for their kids. I don't think they're worried about facing the Creator in the end. And that's, I think our only relief that justice will be paid, period. Yeah, I don't get it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just slightly surprises me because for a movement that called itself MAGA, that said its slogan was America First, it is so plainly, self evidently, not in America's interest to be so umbilically connected to a gangster regime in Tel Aviv of a country of 7 million people, thousands of miles away.
But at the same time, they're saying America first. But the American people, I think, are completely disconnected from the government and what the government does. What the government does with their tax dollars, I really feel it does not matter. Democrat, Republican, Independent, whether they know what's going on, whether they do not know what's going on, whether they have concerns, there's no way to even voice it to where they're going to change their policies. You speak to most Americans, and you know if they let's say know what's going on in Gaza or Israel, Palestine. I don't like saying Israel. Most of them put their arms up. Hey, what can I do? What can I do? And it's true that they got us to the point where, you know, it doesn't matter, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then you add in the factor that you're quite likely to be scooped up by the authorities on the street. If there's any possibility at all of arresting you and deporting you, they're going to grab it.
Well, you know, yeah, when people say go back to your own country, I don't know what to say. What, Brooklyn? My wife's from Egypt, and actually within a week I'll be in Port Said. Which, you know, it's going to be maybe even more frustrating. You know, I'm a 2-hour drive from Gaza, and still, you know, helpless on helping our brothers and sisters. You'd mentioned the Irish, I think, before in New York, in the United States.
Yeah, I was saying there's an Irish saying that eaten bread is soon forgotten. So it's not just about donations that they made previously to previous elections. It's something more fundamental than that.
Well, bringing up the Irish is what I'm saying is, you know, because I think it's an important point and giving an idea of how folks can just completely change when all of a sudden become an American citizen. I don't know if you know, 1 out of 9 Americans have Irish blood. They're very proud of it. So they say 32 million, 33 million. The thing here is, I think they've forgotten what being Irish was all about. How the Irish stand up for injustice around the world. If they held true to the Irish values that they say they do, you wouldn't have had a Vietnam. You wouldn't have had an Iraq. You wouldn't have had all this nonsense going on. But once it seems like you come in here and you're indoctrinated,
well, you've said plenty and very well too. And what might be finally, depending on how long I talk with them, is my good colleague Matthew Alford in the beautiful city of Bath. Matthew, what will you want to say today?
Thanks, George. Nice to see you. So I was just thinking about media bias in culture more widely and how important that is to the way that society operates, to the way that foreign policy in particular operates. It seems to me that media, which is a subject that I teach on and write on a lot, is a really fundamental aspect. I think more so than things like compromat that you've referred to, and even more so than the economy. I think that stories, narratives really drive what happened in international politics and the sort of underlying ideologies. There's you can see that the wave of media that even on a show like Adolescence, for example, which came out last week on Netflix and is just the talk across the political elites, kind of giving this idea that 13, 14, 15-year-olds might kill you with knives. That sort of creating this kind of fear environment. But I think not just on domestic policy, but also on foreign policy as well. That I wonder how important you see these kind of things. I mean, there's literally just this week, Jude Law finished wrapping a film which is called The Wizard of the Kremlin. I don't think it's out until next year, but I think it's about Jude Law is literally playing Vladimir Putin in a major Hollywood movie. And I think it's about disinformation that comes out of the Kremlin. So it just seems to me that the media is plays a really important role, and that feeds in very much to an overall ideology that can be very much infected with all sorts of biases and fears. How important do you think that is to the conduct of foreign policy?
And racism, of course. You know, I mean, I just watched with my kids The Life of Pets 2, where not only the Russian character was wicked and evil, but even his dogs were wicked and evil, and they were Russian dogs. So, of course, it works. You'll know George Orwell's novel, Keep the Aspidistra Flying, the hero Gordon Comstock, he describes advertising as legalized lying. Well, media is legalized lying, and advertising works. Legalized lying in the media works. It has its impact, or they wouldn't do it. So, of course, there are a lot of sheep who follow the sheepdog all the way on to the truck for the final journey to its end in the abattoir. There's a lot of that. I was thinking of a stunt the other day of buying 20 sheep and painting, you know, labor on the side of them and leading them, as it were, to the abattoir. It is undoubtedly true that the prevailing orthodoxy, which is the orthodoxy that the media and the political class, irrespective of party position, maintain and seek to persuade the rest of us to follow. That is a key component. But earlier today, I was in Sofia in Bulgaria, whose government is amongst the most pro-NATO, anti-Russian of all governments in the European Union. But you know what? Every single Bulgarian I spoke to had the diametric opposite point of view. So propaganda doesn't work completely, and sometimes it fails completely. And in the case of Bulgaria, I'm happy to report that it has failed completely. But it depends on a word you used, ideology. You need an ideology as an anchor in shifting sands, in swirling waters. You need to have something that you believe in. And many people have lost that in Western countries. I'm not talking about an ism or an ite. You don't have to be a socialist or this ist or this ism, but you have to believe in something minimal, like self-respect, like sovereignty, like the fact that you're not going to be ordered what to do by other countries, by other people. And a lot of our people have lost that. There's also racism involved about Muslims. We can't hide this. I've got a very big tweet running at the moment in response to an Irishman who says, Islam has no place in Europe, just as Christianity has no place in the Middle East. And I responded by saying, yes, because, of course, Jesus came from Middlesbrough. The idea that Christianity has nothing to do with the Middle East, when that's where it was born, is a measure of just how unhinged our propagandized population is. And what we have to do is through programs like this, through other people's programs, through other voices that are listened to, including your own, is to build a bigger and bigger audience of people who know the facts, people who know the truth. And if we can get to that, we'll begin to tilt the balance in our favor. But we are a long way short of it. The one thing I'll say, Matthew, is there are more people who know today than there have ever been. And I've been in politics more than 50 years, as you know. And if you think it's bad now, trust me, it was much, much worse before. The media is becoming meaner and leaner and tighter precisely because it can no longer allow voices like mine to be heard, because they know that the tipping point is that much closer than it was before. In the run-up to the Iraq War, 20 years and more ago, I was on mainstream television virtually every day. I was on the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky News, CNN, MSNBC, almost daily. I had to really work to fit all these interviews in. I have not been on mainstream television for an entire decade because they can't afford to allow someone like me on anymore, because it might just tip the balance. It might just make the difference. Matthew Alford, a very great expert on media and the narratives that they try to spin us, will, I think, have to be the last call of this particular show. I'm very sorry if you didn't get on, but I promise you, if you come back next week at the same time, same place, we'll make every effort to bump you up the list. I've been George Galloway. You've been a marvelous audience. This has been Have It Out with Galloway.